For 16 years, Joshua Kaiser endured the crushing weight of a crime he did not commit. Imprisoned for murder, he watched as the true perpetrator walked free across Missouri, a ghost in plain sight, observing an innocent teenager bear the profound burden of his heinous act. It is a chilling testament to the fragility of justice, a stark reminder of how easily a life can be derailed by systemic failure. The genesis of this profound injustice began on a cold November night in 1992. Angela Michelle Lawless, a vibrant 19-year-old, was brutally murdered, her body abandoned on a quiet exit ramp off Interstate 55. Her death would not only shatter a family, but would expose some of the most glaring, unforgivable flaws within the American legal system. A young woman's life tragically extinguished, an innocent man's future unjustly stolen, while the true killer nearly vanished into the annals of unsolved crimes. It took until December 2024 for the relentless march of forensic science to finally catch up, pulling the real culprit from the shadows of nearly 3 decades. Angela Michelle Lawless embodied the quintessential dreams of small-town America. Born on August 2, 1973, in the quiet community of Benton, Missouri, she flourished within the embrace of a loving family. To those who knew her best, she was simply Michelle. At just 19 years old, her physical presence was slight, barely 5 feet tall and weighing only 95 pounds. Yet her spirit, her boundless energy, and her unwavering determination more than compensated for her delicate stature. Benton was more than just a dot on a map. It was a closely knit community, a place where belonging was woven into the very fabric of daily life. Michelle was far from an anonymous face in this community. She was a freshman at Southeast Missouri State University, immersed in her nursing studies, her gaze fixed on a bright and promising future within the medical field. Her chosen path surprised no one. For years, she had dedicated her time as a candy striper at Cape Girardeau Hospital, a familiar, comforting presence in the hallways, and had actively participated in countless charity events. She was a Girl Scout, a testament to her commitment, and had even earned a green belt in karate, a skill that underscored her innate courage and her readiness to stand up for herself and for others. Michelle graduated from Thomas Kelly High School in 1991, a proud member of the basketball cheerleading squad, her infectious enthusiasm echoing through the gymnasium. Michelle's presence left an indelible mark on every school hallway, her graduation not an ending, but a clear stepping stone towards even grander ambitions. Those who knew her spoke of a young woman whose radiant smile possessed the power to brighten even the darkest day, a spirit whose determination seemed destined for success. On the surface, her life appeared idyllic, a portrait of youthful promise. Yet, beneath this seemingly perfect veneer lay a series of challenges, private struggles that would later prove tragically crucial in unraveling the true circumstances of her death. For 3 years, since she was just 16, Leon Lamb had been her boyfriend. But Michelle's private diaries painted a starkly different picture from the cheerful, untroubled image they presented to the outside world. These hidden pages revealed a relationship far more complicated, fraught with a turbulence that belied their public facade. Michelle's vibrant life was heartbreakingly cut short on November 8, 1992, a mere half-mile from the very home where she had grown up. No one in that quiet, familiar neighborhood could have conceived that their peaceful community would soon be torn asunder by the agonizing question of who could commit such a terrible act against one of their own. Early that morning, a seemingly ordinary call to law enforcement would set in motion a harrowing narrative, a story of profound loss, agonizing injustice, and the relentless pursuit of truth that would unfold over the next 30 years. The echoes of such a crime resonate through generations, a stark reminder that while the machinery of justice may grind slowly, its ultimate purpose is to bring light to the darkest corners, ensuring that no life is forgotten and no truth remains buried forever. The pre-dawn hours of an ordinary Tuesday. Along the familiar arteries of Interstate 55, a routine commute was underway. Jerry and Ruth Householder, bound for their day's work, navigated the quiet roads, their journey marked by the rhythmic hum of their vehicle. But as they approached exit 77, a stark anomaly shattered the mundane tranquility. At the very apex of the northbound off-ramp, a car sat motionless. Its engine idled, a low thrumming sound barely audible above the ambient night. Headlights, twin beams of stark white, pierced the profound darkness, illuminating nothing but the empty asphalt ahead. There was an unsettling stillness about it, a silent tableau that spoke of something profoundly amiss. The intuitive unease that settled upon the householders was immediate and undeniable. Rather than approach the scene themselves, a decision born of caution and an instinct that something was deeply wrong, they made the call. The Benton Sheriff's Office received the report. At precisely 1:29 a.m., the dispatch went out. Reserve Deputy Rick Walter and Officer Roy Moore, seasoned veterans of countless late-night calls, were the first to arrive. The scene they encountered was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that often precedes a storm. There, just as reported, sat a 1986 Buick Somerset. Its engine remained running, a solitary pulse of mechanical life in the otherwise still night. No other sound broke the oppressive quiet. No radio played, no human voice offered explanation. It was a tableau of suspended animation, a vehicle frozen in time, its purpose now shrouded in an ominous mystery. Officer Moore, his movements deliberate and cautious, approached the driver's side door. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, the kind that tightens the throat and quickens the pulse. With a slow, measured hand, he carefully opened the door. The beam of his flashlight cut through the interior gloom, revealing a scene that would forever etch itself into the darkest corners of their memories. Slumped over the center console, her head resting eerily close to the passenger seat, was the body of Michelle Lawless lay. The immediate horrifying realization was that this was no accident. The sheer, overwhelming volume of blood staining the interior of the car left no room for doubt. Michelle Lawless Lay had been subjected to an act of unimaginable brutality. Forensic examination would later confirm she had been struck multiple times with a baseball bat, a blunt force trauma designed to inflict maximum pain and incapacitation. But the violence did not end there. The assault culminated in an execution. She had been shot 3 times at point-blank range with a firearm. One bullet had torn through her face, another had entered the back of her head, and a third had pierced her back. It was an act of overkill, a harrowing display of extreme violence that spoke not only of murder, but of a profound personal rage, a chilling determination to ensure absolute certainty of death. Yet, amidst the carnage, the broken elements of the scene began to coalesce, revealing an even darker, more intricate story. Investigators meticulously traced a trail of blood leading away from the car, down a steep embankment to a fence below the off-ramp. There, along a flat slope, a significant amount of blood was discovered on the ground, indicating a struggle, a movement of bodies away from the initial resting place of the car. Within the vehicle, critical details emerged that immediately challenged conventional motives. Michelle's rings remained in the center console, directly beneath her body. Her wallet, undisturbed, was found in her purse, tucked beneath the passenger seat. The absence of any theft suggested a motive far more personal, far more sinister than simple robbery. Other clues painted an even more vivid picture of the events that transpired. Michelle's socks were found to be heavily soiled, caked with dirt and debris, yet her shoes were nowhere to be found. This spoke volumes, indicating she had been out of the car, on the ground, without her footwear, engaged in some form of struggle or flight. The careful, almost deliberate placement of her body within the car, combined with the undisturbed nature of her valuables, strongly suggested a staging, an attempt to manipulate the scene. This was not a random act of violence, it was a calculated, brutal assault. The evidence began to paint a chilling, step-by-step reconstruction of Michelle's final moments. It was thus she knew. Someone familiar enough to not immediately trigger alarm. The driver's side window had been lowered, but only just enough for conversation, not so far as to suggest she felt threatened at the outset. A casual exchange, perhaps, that spiraled into terror. From that point, she had either run in a desperate attempt to escape or had been violently dragged down the treacherous slope, where the initial, severe blows were inflicted. Then, a truly disturbing act by the perpetrator. After the initial assault, he had carried her back up the embankment to the waiting car, leaving a macabre, bloody trail along the slope as he ascended. This act, requiring immense physical effort and a chilling resolve, suggested a specific intent, perhaps to complete the murder in the vehicle or to stage the body for later discovery. Even more disturbing, forensic analysis revealed blood and organic material beneath Michelle's fingernails that did not belong to her. This was irrefutable evidence that she had fought fiercely, desperately, for her life, grappling with her attacker in a final, futile struggle. 3 empty bullet casings from a .380 caliber automatic pistol were recovered from inside the car, a chilling testament to the close-range execution. The killer, it seemed, wanted absolutely no doubt. Michelle Lawless was meant to be dead. At precisely 1:30 a.m., just minutes after the official discovery of the scene, a man named Mark Abbott arrived at the Benton Sheriff's Office. He claimed he had discovered the scene earlier, before the householders, before the officers. But in a rapidly unfolding investigation where every second was critical, his statements immediately raised red flags. As detectives began to question him, his narrative began to unravel, punctuated by inconsistencies and outright falsehoods. Abbott's claims were later proven false, creating an immediate and complex web of contradictions that would plague the investigation for years. He became an immediate person of interest. His presence at the station so soon after the murder, coupled with his fabricated story casting a long, dark shadow of suspicion. Abbott claimed he had grabbed Michelle by... The truth, often elusive, is a mosaic built from fragments of evidence, from the cold, hard facts that defy deception. In the relentless pursuit of justice, investigators must sift through the debris of violence, interpret the silent screams of a crime scene, and confront the intricate lies spun by those who seek to hide their darkest deeds. For every act of brutality, there is a trail, however faint, and a story, however harrowing, waiting to be uncovered, a testament to the enduring human capacity for both profound evil and unwavering perseverance. His torso, from the waist down, protruded through the driver's side window of the abandoned vehicle, a grotesque tableau of violence. Yet, inexplicably, Mark Abbott, the first witness to discover the scene, claimed there was no blood on his own clothing. Abbott further reported seeing a white car speeding away, carrying 2 Hispanic men. But as investigators pressed for details in subsequent interviews, his account fractured, shifting repeatedly, casting a shadow of doubt over his every word. Meanwhile, in the pre-dawn hours of that fateful Sunday, around 1 o'clock in the morning, a crucial, albeit initially overlooked, eyewitness emerged. Dallas Butler, driving past the exit ramp, noticed two vehicles, a dark sedan and a lighter Ford pickup truck. In the driver's seat of one, he observed a young woman, her head bowed in a posture of profound stillness, yet showing no visible injuries. Nearby, a man in a distinct red hat stood, radiating an undeniable nervousness. When Butler, driven by a nascent sense of unease, offered assistance, the man in the red hat reacted with startling aggression, physically pushing him away, a clear and forceful rejection of any intervention. The stark evidence collected at the scene began to paint a chilling picture for the seasoned detectives. This was no random act of violence, no opportunistic robbery gone awry. There was no sign of struggle beyond the initial assault, no items stolen, no attempt to conceal the victim. Instead, the meticulous brutality suggested an intensely personal attack, a crime born of intimate knowledge and deep-seated malice. Someone who knew Michelle Lawless, this bright, promising 19-year-old nursing student, had carried out the horrific assault, then returned her body to the car, leaving behind a scene that spoke of a calculated, almost ritualistic act. The central agonizing questions resonated through the nascent investigation. Why would anyone desire the death of such a vibrant, hopeful young woman? And what drove them to such extreme, deliberate lengths to ensure her demise? As the first rays of dawn pierced the darkness over Benton, Missouri that Sunday morning, the police department grasped the grim reality. They were not merely confronting a random tragedy. They were facing a meticulously orchestrated murder. Yet, in those initial hours, they could not possibly fathom the labyrinthine path their quest for justice would take. They could not foresee that their pursuit of truth would be irrevocably marred by the specter of wrongful convictions, by critical evidence inexplicably lost, and by a cunning killer who would evade capture for an agonizing period stretching across more than 3 decades. By the year 1994, a suffocating pressure had descended upon the small, close-knit community of Benton. The town demanded answers, a resolution to the cold case that had haunted their collective consciousness for years. Law enforcement, feeling the weight of public expectation, believed they had finally identified the elusive perpetrator. Joshua Kaiser, a 17-year-old from Illinois, an outsider in this tight-knit Missouri town, was about to be thrust into the harrowing vortex of one of the state's most infamous miscarriages of justice. From the very moment the case against Kaiser began to crystallize, its foundations appeared alarmingly questionable. The primary witness, Mark Abbott, whose initial contradictory statements had already severely complicated the early investigation, suddenly and inexplicably changed his story once more. He now claimed that Kaiser was the very person he had seen in the white car near the crime scene. This was the same Mark Abbott who, in his initial frantic reports, had described seeing a dark-skinned Hispanic man. A mere glance at Joshua Kaiser, a fair-skinned teenager, should have immediately triggered profound doubts regarding Abbott's credibility, exposing the glaring inconsistency as a fundamental flaw in the prosecution's evolving narrative. Yet, the systemic problems with the prosecution's case extended far beyond the unreliable testimony of a single shifting witness. The most damning absence was the complete lack of any tangible physical evidence linking Kaiser to the brutal crime. There were no fingerprints recovered from the scene that matched his, no DNA evidence connecting him to Michelle Lawless, and crucially, no murder weapon ever found that could be attributed to him. This void of concrete forensic evidence left a gaping hole in any claim of his involvement. Instead, the entirety of the prosecution's argument rested on a fragile scaffolding of circumstantial details and, most disturbingly, the highly suspect testimony of 3 separate inmates. These individuals, all incarcerated alongside Kaiser, claimed he had confessed the murder to them while in jail, a scenario that, to any experienced investigator, immediately raises a multitude of red flags. Professional law enforcement agencies and seasoned prosecutors are trained to treat jailhouse informant testimony with the gravest skepticism. Such witnesses often have powerful incentives to fabricate stories, ranging from reduced sentences and improved living conditions to financial rewards, making their accounts inherently unreliable without robust corroboration. Despite this well-established cautionary principle, the prosecution pressed forward. Adding another chilling dimension to their case, they alleged that Kaiser and Lawless had been involved in a heated altercation at a Halloween party just 1 week before her murder, attempting to establish a clear motive rooted in personal animosity. However, this critical piece of the prosecution's narrative would also unravel. Many years later, when the host of that very Halloween party was finally contacted, she unequivocally confirmed that she knew every single person who had attended her gathering that night. Her testimony was definitive. Joshua Kaiser had not been there. He had not, in fact, attended the party at all, dismantling a key pillar of the prosecution's fabricated motive and further exposing the profound weaknesses at the heart of their case. The pursuit of justice, often depicted as a clear and unwavering path, can sometimes become a labyrinth of human error, institutional failings, and the tragic manipulation of truth. When the innocent are condemned and the guilty allowed to roam free, the very fabric of societal trust begins to fray, leaving an enduring scar on the collective conscience and a haunting echo of what might have been. There was no physical presence, no eyewitness account, no electronic record, no definitive link suggesting Joshua Kaiser had ever met Michelle Lawless. In fact, the foundational premise of the prosecution's case was built upon a void, a complete absence of evidence connecting the 2 individuals prior to the tragic night. Yet the machinery of justice, once set in motion, often finds its own momentum. The most damning piece of evidence, presented with an air of scientific certainty, was a jacket. This garment, purportedly belonging to Kaiser, was paraded before the jury, its fabric allegedly stained with the blood of Michelle Lawless. The police, with unwavering conviction, claimed forensic analysis confirmed the match, presenting it as irrefutable proof of Kaiser's culpability. It was a powerful, visceral exhibit designed to imprint a sense of guilt onto the minds of those tasked with determining his fate. Years later, long after the verdict had been rendered and a life irrevocably altered, that critical piece of evidence was re-examined. The crimson stain, once presented as human blood, was revealed through meticulous reanalysis to be nothing more than common tomato juice. A simple, culinary substance, mistaken for the very essence of life, had served as the cornerstone of a murder conviction. But by then, the profound and irreversible damage had been done. The truth emerged too late to prevent the initial catastrophe. In February of 1994, Joshua Kaiser was convicted of second-degree murder. This verdict was delivered despite the existence of a robust and verifiable alibi, one that placed him a staggering 350 miles away in the distant city of Kankakee, Illinois, on the very night Michelle Lawless was slain. The jury, swayed by the seemingly unassailable case meticulously constructed by a team of experienced prosecutors, overlooked this fundamental contradiction. They delivered a sentence of 60 years in prison, effectively condemning a mere boy to a lifetime behind bars. Joshua Kaiser, a youth of just 17 years, began serving time for a murder he did not commit. His new reality was confined within the formidable walls of the Missouri State Penitentiary, a facility infamously known as the bloodiest 47 acres in America. He was assigned to Cell Block 99, a grim testament to the institution's brutal history. This very prison, which had once housing Junior, now held an innocent teenager, a stark and tragic irony. As Kaiser struggled to adjust to the harrowing realities of life behind steel bars and razor wire, grappling with the loss of his youth and freedom, the true killer remained at large. This unknown perpetrator walked free, a ghost in the shadows, silently witnessing another human being pay the ultimate price for his heinous crime. The injustice was compounded by a chilling revelation that would only surface much later. The jury had never been privy to critical information, exculpatory evidence that the prosecution had deliberately withheld, information that directly contradicted their entire narrative. Compounding this ethical breach, 3 inmates who had testified against Kaiser later recanted their statements. They admitted under oath that their initial testimonies were outright lies, fabrications born from desperation and the promise of undisclosed benefits in exchange for their cooperation. These were not spontaneous acts of conscience. These admissions were extracted over years, a testament to the slow, agonizing grind of the justice system. In the interim, Joshua Kaiser's formative years, his very essence of freedom, had been systematically stripped away, consumed by the unforgiving maw of the prison system. His wrongful conviction was not merely a personal tragedy, it was a dual affront to justice. It stole the life of an innocent man, condemning him to decades of undeserved suffering. Simultaneously, it allowed Michelle's true killer to evade accountability, to remain an unpunished threat, leaving her family and the community without true closure. Kaiser endured decades behind bars, the truth of that cold November night in 1992 remaining shrouded in official silence. It lingered, a dark secret, until someone, driven by an unwavering sense of doubt, dared to re-examine the case with fresh eyes, meticulously uncovering the systemic flaws that had incarcerated an innocent man. The unexpected champion of this long-buried truth emerged from the very beginning of the tragedy. Rick Walter. He was the same reserved deputy who had first discovered Michelle's lifeless body on that horrific night, a silent witness to the initial horror. Walter, who was elected sheriff of Scott County in 2005, had harbored a persistent, nagging dissatisfaction with Kaiser's conviction. The official narrative had never truly settled in his conscience. In 2006, Sheriff Walter embarked upon a course of action rarely attempted by law enforcement officers. He made the audacious decision to reopen a case that everyone else considered definitively closed, an investigation sealed by the courts and the passage of time. Even for a seasoned investigator, what he unearthed buried deep within the old files was nothing short of shocking. Among the dusty records and forgotten documents, Walter discovered an old notebook belonging to former Sheriff Bill Farrell. Within its pages, Farrell had penned a private, damning admission. He did not believe Kaiser was involved in the crime. Yet in open court, under oath, Farrell had testified unequivocally that Kaiser was guilty. The revelation that the very sheriff, a figure of authority who had played a pivotal role in securing Kaiser's conviction, harbored profound private doubts about his guilt, was more than significant. It was a seismic shift, revealing a profound betrayal of public trust. Even more telling, the very foundation of the prosecution's case began to crumble under scrutiny, not through external challenge, but through the admissions of the witnesses themselves. One by one, the 3 incarcerated individuals who had originally claimed Joshua Kaiser confessed to them while in custody, dramatically recanted their sworn statements. Their shocking admissions laid bare a systemic failure. They revealed they had been explicitly promised leniency, the lure of reduced sentences, in exchange for their fabricated testimonies. This was not merely a matter of mistaken identity or poor recall. It was a deliberate manipulation of justice, an exchange of freedom for false witness. Crucially, this damning information, the very mechanism by which these false testimonies were procured, had been systematically withheld from the defense, denying Kaiser his fundamental right to a fair trial and exposing a profound breach of legal ethics. The unreliability of eyewitness accounts also came sharply into focus. Chantel Crichter, whose testimony had placed Joshua Kaiser and Michelle Lawless in a heated argument at the Halloween party, a crucial piece of the original narrative, later admitted the profound error of her recollection. Her initial certainty, so compelling in court, dissolved under re-examination, revealing the fallibility of memory and the immense pressure placed upon witnesses in high-stakes criminal proceedings. Walter's meticulous investigation extended beyond human testimony, delving into the very bedrock of scientific evidence presented by the state. What he uncovered were not minor discrepancies, but major systemic problems with the physical evidence that had been used to condemn Kaiser. Prosecutors had confidently asserted that Michelle Lawless's blood was present on Kaiser's jacket, a seemingly irrefutable detail that had weighed heavily against him. Yet Walter discovered this crucial piece of evidence had never been properly or even adequately tested. When subjected to rigorous modern forensic re-examination, the truth emerged with startling clarity. There was no blood at all. The supposed crimson stain was, as Kaiser had steadfastly maintained for 16 long years, nothing more than a common tomato juice mark, a mundane detail twisted into a damning accusation. The initial forensic oversight, or perhaps deliberate misrepresentation, had contributed directly to a wrongful conviction. Even more profoundly, a silent witness had lain dormant for decades, awaiting the dawn of new scientific capability. Material found beneath Michelle Lawless's fingernails, evidence meticulously collected but technologically inaccessible in 1994, would later become the linchpin in unraveling the true narrative of her death. DNA testing, a revolutionary advancement unavailable at the time of the original investigation, promised to speak volumes, to identify her true killer with an accuracy previously unimaginable. By February of 2009, the sheer weight of the extensive evidence Walter had painstakingly uncovered could no longer be ignored. Judge Richard B. Callahan, tasked with reviewing this mountain of new information, found the tide of justice beginning its slow, inexorable turn. In a stern 44-page ruling, a document that laid bare the systemic failures of the original case, Callahan unequivocally noted that Joshua Kaiser had been misled and deceived at nearly every stage of the legal process. His words were a damning indictment of a system that had failed its most fundamental duty. After enduring 16 years behind bars, a lifetime stolen by an unjust conviction, Joshua Kaiser was finally released. The prison gates, which had held him captive for so long, at last swung open. In the aftermath of this profound injustice, the state of Missouri sought to reconcile its grievous error, paying Kaiser $4 million to settle his civil rights lawsuit. Yet for Joshua, this newfound freedom and financial compensation did not signal the end of the story. It was, remarkably, just the beginning. In an extraordinary demonstration of character, devoid of bitterness or a desire for vengeance, Kaiser chose to give $10,000 back to the very police force that had once incarcerated him. His motivation was singular: to aid in the ongoing, renewed search for Michelle's true killer. Walter's relentless investigation had not only achieved the monumental task of freeing an innocent man, but it had also ignited a renewed, invigorated effort to identify the person truly responsible for Michelle Lawless's death. Armed with modern forensic techniques and the fresh, unbiased eyes of new investigators, the cold case was reopened. Old evidence, once misinterpreted or overlooked, was re-examined with unprecedented precision. The focus began to shift towards someone who had been present all along, a figure whose connection to Michelle was far deeper, far more intimate, and far more sinister than anyone had initially realized. Michelle Lawless's real story, the tragic circumstances of her death, and the crucial clues hidden beneath her nails, had remained a secret, buried in the shadows for 32 years. Leanne Lamb, Michelle's boyfriend of 3 years, had been an intimate part of her life from the very beginning. He had stood by, a silent observer, as an innocent teenager was imprisoned for a crime he himself had committed. As police revisited Michelle's personal writings, a window into her private world, they uncovered a startling revelation. Her diary, a repository of her most intimate thoughts and feelings, painted a troubling, unsettling picture of her relationship with Lamb. Beneath the seemingly sweet veneer of teenage romance, a darker side emerged, revealing a toxic dynamic marked by profound jealousy, insidious power struggles, and unpredictable, volatile mood swings. These were the classic, insidious hallmarks of a deeply troubled and potentially dangerous relationship. Modern forensic science would ultimately provide the irrefutable confirmation of these chilling suspicions. The DNA recovered from under Michelle's fingernails, the very evidence that had played a pivotal role in freeing Joshua Kaiser, now began to tell a damning, undeniable story of its own. In 2008, the Missouri State Highway Patrol Crime Lab meticulously analyzed these precious samples, and the results were unequivocal. A direct, undeniable match had been found. The pursuit of truth, often a labyrinthine journey, can span decades, demanding unwavering dedication and a willingness to confront uncomfortable realities. Justice, when finally served, offers not just retribution, but a profound affirmation of human dignity, even as it exposes the fragility of initial assumptions and the devastating cost of a system's failure. The microscopic evidence, Leanne Lamb's DNA, was not a minor trace. It was a definitive, irrefutable signature, a biological fingerprint left at the scene, conclusively linking him to the brutal crime that had haunted a community for decades. This wasn't merely a hint. It was the scientific bedrock upon which a case, long cold, would finally be rebuilt. The nature of the evidence itself painted a grim picture. Forensic analysis suggested Michelle had fought fiercely, desperately, against an assailant she knew intimately. The defensive wounds, the struggle implied by the disarray, and crucially, the skin cells trapped beneath her fingernails, all pointed to a violent confrontation with someone familiar, someone whose presence would not have initially triggered immediate alarm. This was not a random act of violence. It was a betrayal. With this powerful new evidence, police were compelled to re-examine Lamb's original statement, a narrative he had carefully constructed over 3 decades prior. In the immediate aftermath of Michelle's disappearance, he had claimed she visited him between 11:30 p.m. and midnight on November 7th, 1992. He spun a tale of a heated argument, asserting that the scratches on his body, later dismissed, were the result of Michelle's anger, not her struggle for survival. According to Lamb, she had then left his house around 1 a.m. However, this carefully constructed timeline, once accepted, now crumbled under the weight of meticulous reconstruction. Michelle had been seen alive at an exit ramp, miles from Lamb's residence, around 1 a.m. The sheer travel time required to traverse that distance made Lamb's alibi not just improbable, but physically impossible. As detectives dug deeper into Lamb's past and present, a more disturbing pattern emerged. His controlling and manipulative behavior, a dark undercurrent in his relationship with Michelle, had not ceased with her death. He had moved to Arkansas, attempting to forge a new life, a new identity, but the insidious thread of his manipulative nature continued, adding a chilling layer to the gravity of the cold case. While an innocent man had languished in prison, stripped of his freedom and future, Lamb had walked free, carrying the monstrous secret of his crime for more than 30 years. He knew he had taken Michelle's life and allowed another, a young man, to bear the crushing burden of his guilt. He had lived with this knowledge, a hidden monster, his silence a shroud over the truth. In December of 2024, after years of relentless pursuit and the advent of cutting-edge forensic techniques, everything finally converged. Armed with the irrefutable DNA evidence, bolstered by re-examined witness statements, and anchored by a meticulously reconstructed timeline that shattered Lamb's long-held deception, law enforcement made their move. On December 20th, Leon Lamb, then 52 years old, was apprehended in Conway, Arkansas. Michelle's former boyfriend was, at last, being held accountable for the heinous crime he had committed decades earlier. The 32-year span from murder to arrest served as a stark, unforgiving mirror, reflecting every flaw and failing within the criminal justice system. An overzealous prosecution, driven by a desire for swift closure, had sent the wrong man to jail. Witnesses, whether through fear, coercion, or misremembered details, had provided testimony that proved to be inaccurate or even intentionally deceptive under oath. Crucial evidence had been mishandled, its significance overlooked or misinterpreted in the initial flawed investigation. Yet, despite these profound systemic failures, justice, against all odds, ultimately prevailed. This triumph was not accidental. It was the direct result of modern forensic science, a field that continues to push the boundaries of what is knowable, coupled with painstaking, often thankless, investigative work, and the unwavering determination of those who refused to surrender Michelle's memory to the passage of time. They refused to give up on finding her truth. Ironically, the very evidence that led to Lamb's capture was something he himself had left behind in 1992. The DNA found under Michelle's fingernails, the same biological material he had brazenly claimed came from consensual intimacy, was the silent, undeniable witness that ultimately sealed his fate. Modern forensic testing, with its unparalleled precision, confirmed what seasoned detectives had long suspected in their hearts. The scratches were not the marks of passion, but the desperate, final testament of Michelle's struggle to survive, a testament etched in her very being. Leon Lamb's arrest in December of 2024 could have, and perhaps should have, marked the definitive conclusion of this more than 30-year saga. Yet, true to the convoluted and often agonizing history of this case, the story remained complicated. Now 52, Lamb is vigorously contesting his transfer from Arkansas to Missouri, the state where he faces first-degree murder charges for a crime committed so long ago. He remains incarcerated without bond. His attempts to delay the inevitable merely temporary legal maneuvers. Missouri prosecutors, fully prepared and resolute, stand ready to present their meticulously constructed case, armed with the DNA evidence, compelling witness testimony, and over 3 decades of accumulated truth. The long arc of the moral universe may bend towards justice, but its journey is often fraught with missteps, obscured by lies, and agonizingly slow. Yet, as the sun finally sets on the era of deception, the relentless pursuit of truth, fueled by an unyielding commitment to the forgotten, can pierce even the darkest veils of time, ensuring that no crime, no matter how old, remains unpunished, and no life, however tragically cut short, is ever truly forgotten. The accumulated proof, undeniable and stark, finally illuminated the figure who had been hiding in plain sight all along. For the small, tight-knit community of Benton, Missouri, the passage of time offered no true healing. The events of the 8th of November, 1992, continued to leave deep, unyielding scars. That night, a double tragedy unfolded, claiming two lives in profoundly different ways. Michelle Lawless's vibrant future was violently extinguished, her promise brutally cut short. Simultaneously, Joshua Kaiser, an innocent man, was robbed of 16 years of his precious youth, condemned by a wrongful conviction. Yet the pursuit of justice and the unvarnished truth never wavered. A haunting question persisted. Could more thorough, scrupulous investigative methods have prevented Joshua Kaiser from being unjustly imprisoned? This harrowing case serves as a stark, enduring reminder that even as decades turn into generations, the relentless pursuit of justice, powered by the convergence of modern forensic science, unwavering persistence, and meticulous scrutiny, can ultimately illuminate the darkest corners of human depravity. It is a testament to the enduring human need for truth, a beacon against the slow erosion of memory and the insidious grip of time.